Welcome to the Property and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Atkinson.
I'm Matt Skehan.
We'll be fueling your financial future one coffee and property insights at a time.
Helping you navigate the property market like a pro.
Hello, and what a pleasure it is to have your company today on the Property and Coffee Podcast, where we are going to be fueling your financial future one coffee and property insights at a time. I'm your host, Matt Atkinson, joined by my co-host, Matt Skehan.
Thanks, Matty.
So today we are going to be chatting with a building and pest inspection expert, Russell. Russell, thanks for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
Great. And Russell's been in the industry as a builder for a number of decades before switching and helping people navigate the seen and unseen pitfalls of buying homes and also what hides behind the walls for the last decade. Today, we'll be covering off some of the following topics: a bit around Russ's background and his experience, some of the hidden dangers and interior traps you can find when you're looking to buy a house. Also, if you were to get someone that's unqualified to advise you on the build and pest inspection, what can go wrong? And also, we'll leave on a good note, which is some of the building success stories that you've seen in your journey. So, firstly, let's get into it.
So, Russ, I've got an important question for you, mate. One of the hardest of the day.
Yeah.
Your favourite coffee, and where do we find you drinking it, mate? I know you're partial to a cafe. What's your favourite?
Well, it's funny, I always drink skinny lattes.
Me too. Yeah. Or Magic's now, but yes.
And my favourite place to do that is actually in a wine bar.
In a wine bar?
Yeah, my local wine bar.
Is it the Morty Cellars? Is it on
That's
Main
correct.
Street,
Yeah.
Morty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you put wine in the coffee cup?
Yeah, mate. Is that an Irish
Irish
whiskey, mate? What's in there, mate? What time of day is this?
It's normally well before wine time. Yeah.
No, it's a beautiful spot there. Main Street, Morty is what we call gentrification 101. It's a great part of the world, mate.
Yeah.
So, Russ, you would have seen the insides and the bones of hundreds of different houses within Melbourne. Can you just walk us through your journey in the building industry and ultimately what led you to focus on helping people on the inspection side of property?
Sure. So I started actually in high school. I did a building course at one of the local tech schools. I finished that and got an apprenticeship with the Master Builders Association. Did that, got through my apprenticeship as a carpenter. That was a great apprenticeship, good insight, because I did a lot of different types of carpentry. I worked in commercial work, I worked in domestic work through that apprenticeship. Finished that, worked as a carpenter for around about 20 years or so. And as that evolved, I sort of merged into being in charge and doing building works of my own.
Okay.
And then it came evident that you needed to be a registered builder to actually perform some of those builds. So became a registered builder and set up a company, and we built for around about 10 to 15 years as registered builders, and then merged into doing property inspections from there. Yeah. So it was just a natural progression into doing these inspections. Life as a builder, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of hard work. You're in charge of a lot of people, you're responsible for a lot of people. So eventually that kind of wore me down a little bit, and I thought, what can I do next and stay in the industry and keep, and informing people.
All that experience you're able to use because you would have seen a number of different and also built different properties, commercial, residential.
Yeah.
Sort of use that exposure in terms of what you're doing today.
That's right. Yeah. So it was, and I love it. I love doing it. It's great to be able to.
Don't you? I've got time to play golf and
play a bit of golf here and there.
Cafes, mate, as well.
That's right. I like to sit down and do my reports in the cafes occasionally.
Yep.
When I have time. Sometimes when you're in between inspections, you get a bit of time you've got to kill. So you've got to find somewhere cool, mate. I get it. So So. No, I love it. It's great to talk to people after the inspection. That phone call is always very important. We can touch on that later, but it's always really important to talk to the clients after the inspection on the phone to let them know the main things that you found through the inspection. and what to look out for in the report when they receive the report later that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Russ. Rusty, the Sixth Sense. So, mate, you've been. I've known you for almost a decade, as long as you've been in the game for, as long as I've been in the game for. But
Yep.
obviously, as an advocate, try my best not to send you a dud. But obviously, I know you work with other people as well. Like when you walk in a house, how do you sort of know? Like, is there a sixth sense when you sort of get into a place? That just doesn't. You almost know there's going to be an issue. What is it that you look for?
I guess the first thing that I look for when I'm walking up the driveway of a property is vegetation around the external parts of the house. Okay, so trees that are growing close to the house, garden
I've seen that in a
beds,
few reports. It's even my own house in a weatherboard. We literally had a forest on our house. So that was good fun.
So that's always first, and that's the first thing you see. So then when you go internally inside a house, I guess you're looking at the floor levels and you're walking around thinking, oh, these levels are a little out here and there, and I'm going to have to investigate that a bit harder, depending on the access, of course, to the underside of the house, to the subfloor. But there's also maintenance. You can tell a house that's been maintained, and you walk into a house and look at it and go, oh, this place,
let go a bit.
Nobody's looked after this place for quite some time, so I'm going to find some things.
You're going to be there a while. You've got a bit wrong the report, more photos.
That's right. And the site drainage side of things, where you've got those garden beds against the house, and obviously there's some moisture against walls and things. So
for the average punter at home, like garden beds, it's proximity to the house, which we see a lot. What's the biggest? There's a couple, but what's the big sort of two things that why is it bad?
Moisture invites termites.
Yep.
So if there's those conducive conditions for termites to a house, then that's always a big red flag. The great termite, as we might want to call it, is a very clever creature, and the one and most important thing is moisture against the walls, and that's what they look for. And that can be anything, simply as much as a hot water service that's dripping next to a house
it never,
all day long while the
gets
hot water's
diverted.
being used. So if that's dripping into a vegetated area or whatever, that's where the termites possibly will find a spot to get into the property.
So I've worked with you on bakes for a long time, and I think you drilled it into my head. Water's the root of all evils, right?
Yeah.
So water is the root of all evils. So as an advocate, like I'm looking, and that's what we look for the most, right? Because obviously I don't go in the roof space, but pretty much everything else is it's water, moisture. Because as you know, like that's just nothing good happens, right?
No.
Your wet areas, like obviously, you want wet in the shower, but that's about it. Or your pool, but not anywhere else. So.
It's pretty much always water.
Yep.
Just taking a bit of a broader view here on the Melbourne landscape. So Pure operate across a number of different sort of diverse suburbs. I know we might have touched on one or two issues here, but what are sort of some of the common issues you may see in, say, like an old Victorian in the inner east versus a more modern build you would see potentially in your outer suburbs?
Yeah, so when you're in the inner city suburbs and you've got all those beautiful big homes that have been built there and they've been there for 100 years, I always say to people, there were good builders 100 years ago and there were bad builders 100 years ago, and it's the same today. But with those older sort of period type style homes, what they did was a lot of them were, the solid brick ones were put onto bluestone footings. Bluestone footings were put into very shallow trenches, basically, around the perimeter of the home. And then inside was built, on stumps, on timber stumps. So what you can see in those a lot of the time is step cracking and cracking in the render out externally and internally, because they were rendered walls with hard plaster put on the walls. So that hard plaster, doesn't have any flexibility at all, and it'll crack, So some are worse than others because of where they're built with the reactive soils, etc., that the foundations are sitting on. So it's generally just a case of whether somebody's got hold of this house at some stage through its life and actually underpinned those bluestone footings or done some work to the property, and when they're renovating it, they've done it properly and they've done it well. The stumps have been replaced, etc. So that's kind of what we're looking for in those period-style homes.
Okay.
The solid brick ones, of course.
Yep.
The timber ones are a different case because a lot of the time they're just low to the ground right from the start with stumps all the way around them.
Your favourite, mate? Low to the ground, no access.
Yeah,
You
no
love
access.
those.
Can't crawl underneath.
And plants up against the house is even better.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the happy triad.
And it's pretty common
Yeah.
in the older houses and those older period style homes.
Mm.
Yeah. With the new builds in the outer suburbs, we're just looking for shoddy workmanship, basically, you know, and that's not always the case. Like some of the places you go into in the outer suburbs are fine. You'll get through them and find a few minor things, bit of maintenance here and there and whatever, generally. But there have been some shockers that have been hurried and built badly and so forth, and you can get a feel for that the moment you walk up the driveway sometimes. So, yeah.
Okay. It's good to know. Also, as I said, you know, we talked about it can be an expensive exercise if you're not aware of it or you miss it. And one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is talk through some of these. And we're going to be stepping into that as part of our next segments. And Maddie, you're going to take us through. But some of the good, the bad, and the costly that you've seen.
So Rusty, mate, you know, we want to sort of our listeners' benefit talk through a few recent examples that why you'd obviously engage someone like yourself. But so you recently dealt with a first home buyer. We're not going to name the suburb because obviously we won't do that.
No.
But suspected meth lab. So it's not just in the movies, mate. It's not Hollywood. It's real. But what led you to suspect there was some chemical contamination? In the house?
This was an interesting one of the more interesting ones I've ever had to inspect, I can say that. So I met the young first home buyer and his father out the front of the property. Okay. They knew there were a few things wrong with it, and hence why they had me come along and reiterate those things.
Concerns,
I went through. The first thing I saw internally was that all of the waste pipes to the laundry trough, the basins in the bathroom, and the kitchen sink were all disconnected, and the waste was running straight to the underside of the house. Okay. So the pipe was basically extended straight down through the floor.
Okay.
And I thought, this is very strange. Yeah. You know? And then I looked inside of those sinks and basins and things, and all the waste, plug and waste area there that was all corroded, and discoloured and so forth. And I thought, this is not right.
Smells fishy.
So I knew straight away pretty much that something had been going on in that house. I wasn't sure at that stage exactly what. So then that brought me to the subfloor to have a look at those waste pipes coming through. And there were rivers of sort of white, the sort of like creek type looking rivers of white substance that had dried up by this stage. But
so for the listeners at home, you're crawling under the subfloor in this.
Luckily that day I decided to put a mask on.
Okay. Yep.
So I had my mask on and crawled through, and of course, it was like a white Christmas under there.
Oh wow!
It was just crystallised white substance everywhere that I looked. So came back out fairly quickly.
Yep.
Said to the purchaser and his father, this is probably not a good idea to purchase this house. It's been used as a meth lab, there's no doubt in my mind. There's ways of checking all of that. There are meth tests that you can do.
I'm assuming what you found, like the first home buyer with the parents probably did want to go further, or was that?
They opted out straight away.
Well, it obviously just shows the benefit of getting someone like yourself, right? Because they don't first time buyer, they don't know, they're pretty green, right? We deal with them, and obviously they'll be very appreciative. It's a small investment, right? To inherit all sorts of problems, right? I imagine with a house like that, if you've got no drainage and plumbing, and you've got who knows what sort of damage is going on.
I think the comment was made to me when they left was, that's the best $600 I've ever spent.
Oh no, it's it's like an insurance. You wouldn't drive your car without insurance. I still cannot believe people don't get a building and pest inspection for the cost of it. It's crazy, right? Like I hear it regularly in agents. It's just like sometimes auctions, there's 6 bidders and there's only been 2 building and pests. So that's just it's crazy stuff, right? Like it's So,
Definitely.
yeah. No, that's, well, touch wood. We haven't had one of those for our clients, but fingers crossed I don't send you to one, mate. But it's an interesting story, mate. So
Yeah.
hazardous job.
It is, yeah. Well, I really should have had a full HAS gear on.
Yeah.
You know, but
You don't know what you're getting into, though, do
you
you?
don't know what you're getting into
No.
until you're into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this next example is actually one of our clients that we work together mutually. So I was in Bayswater North last year, and yeah, like I say to clients regularly, we don't crawl under the subfloor, and we don't crawl in the roof space. But we had a bit of again, it was probably what a volume build home back in, I think, that 80s from memory.
Yeah, I'd reckon around that time for sure.
Yep. So we're looking for an investor. So it was a passive investor, interstate investor, and then obviously you do the inspection, mate. And I always love the call when Russ calls you, and he's always pretty deadpan, and we banter about it. But it was an interesting report I saw as well. One of the more unique ones I've seen. So you want to explain a bit more for the people about, because obviously no one's crawling in the roof space, right? Like
that's right. So when I arrived at that property, I walked down the driveway as I normally, get a bit of an insight into what I'm looking at for the inspection. And sure enough, I did see that there was a bit of an undulating roof line. And I thought, well, that's okay. I'll check that when I get in the roof space, But to anyone else looking at the house, they probably wouldn't have noticed it. It's just something that I always look at straight away.
You've been doing it for 3 decades.
You kind of get a feel for that type of thing. Anyway, got through most of the inspection internally, and the house wasn't in too bad condition.
Yeah, as far as all that went. There was no cracking. Internally, it was good, solid.
Yeah. And then thought, all right, I'll get in the roof space now and have a look around. Got into the roof and found that there was a cracked hip rafter, which is a pretty main component of a roof. Goes all the way from the ridge all the way down to the front corner of the house. And so it's a long length of timber, and it had a massive crack in it that was really running probably 3/4 of the way down.
It's the biggest crack I've ever seen in a roof, right? So obviously Russ is very thorough, reports 60, 70 pages, and literally had a crack like you wouldn't want to be in that house, because at some point that is going to collapse, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Most of the rafters had disconnected from that rafter, from the hip rafter. So a lot of weight in those tiles, running on rafters that weren't even connected. So yeah, we there was a few little kind of attempted repairs made to that component, that structural member, but they weren't sufficient.
Yeah, I think the long story short of it is we sort of end up having to walk away based on your advice, because our client was an interstate investor, and I think you'd have to lift the roof off, and there's not a return on investment for that normally. So
what is just so we can, I think, bring it back to a bit of a cost, so people know what sort of size of problem that becomes. If they were to do, so if you were to buy that and the purchaser hadn't picked this up, what would they be looking at, ballpark, to get that repaired appropriately?
Yeah, so the involved in all that would be, the first thing, to take all the roof tiles off that area of the roof, and then pull apart all the structural members that are affected. In this case, pretty much half the roof would have had to have been dismantled and rebuilt. So we'd be looking at anywhere, I would think, around $40,000 to $50,000. By the time your ceilings are all affected underneath as well, so there's plastering and painting involved, and the whole thing would have added up.
And then if you're renting it out, there's also the
vacancy rate, So I think
that's right.
Yeah, the agent did come back to us and was potentially open to negotiation, but our clients are very time poor, busy professionals, and young kids, and it's just the unknown, right? Isn't it? There's not a lot of benefit. There's no return on investment for that. Like, that's just a maintenance structural item, and so like we understood our client's position, and so that
a place like that in that condition could get a heavy wind.
Yeah.
In between it getting fixed.
There's a lot of trees too around that area in the east as well. So that's why we do it. So
Russ, just moving on, we want to explore in your area. There's also people that operate, and they might have a range of different experiences and qualifications. So one I wanted to touch on, and it talks to a recent scenario we discussed, is people might want to save a few $100s and potentially use, and this isn't just in your industry, this is across the board, someone that might be a bit cheaper, but they don't always know or aware the qualifications of that person. You recently had one where someone had conducted an inspection, but maybe they weren't qualified to finalize and just formalize what those points were, which the client then needed to engage yourself.
Yeah.
Can you just talk us through what happened there, and also highlight a bit around the differences to what you had from a qualification perspective, and also just so people are aware when they're looking at to engage someone in your profession, what they should be looking out for to make sure you're appropriately qualified.
Yeah, so there's an Australian standard for building and pest inspections, and that has to be adhered to, and sometimes it isn't, basically. There are people out there that are doing inspections that don't have the experience and the knowledge to be able to really conduct those inspections thoroughly. And it's not across the board or anything, but it does happen. Anyway, I've had an experience where there's been an inspection done, the client's got the report, and it's been, it hasn't picked up on things that they've even picked up on. So they've engaged me to go back and do another report. There's other scenarios where you get houses under contract.
Yep.
And with these houses under contract, if a major defect is picked up, and that may have been picked up by another inspector, but he might not be a registered builder and he's not a licensed pest controller. So when that happens, the client can't get out of the contract as a result of the building inspector not being qualified to do that report. So then I get engaged, go and do the report again, even though that inspector's found exactly what's wrong and have done probably a good report. But the qualification issue comes into play, and they need a registered builder or a licensed pest controller if it's termites to get out of the contract.
And it's a good point just to highlight, because I think it's not something people would always be aware of, because if you're engaging someone in your space, you would assume you're registered, and if there was something discovered, okay, and we needed to exit, we can do so. Whereas sometimes that might not be the case, so it is important to be aware of who you're engaging.
Yeah.
No, it's super important, because obviously, again, you can have a condition to protect yourself, but if you don't get the right professional who's qualified, you actually don't have the condition. The condition's invalid, right? So, in real estate's caveat emptor, buy beware. So it is really important that you get someone who knows what they're doing. So you've got to ask those questions, or just work with someone who's trusted. Otherwise, there's no point even having the inspection, because if there's a major defect, you can't get out of it, right? So if they're not qualified, so
100%. And look, fortunately, some of these scenarios we've spoken about, they've sort of either caught them before, where although they might have had to, in this previous case, double up on potential fees, but again, save them, potentially thousands of dollars around, whether that be the contract or having to sort that out. One other one we wanted to touch on, which we're going to call the unconditional disaster, was one where you were called in, but this was post the contract of sale going unconditional.
Great time to come in, Russ. This is your favourite, mate. There's nothing good happens here, mate. This wasn't me, so that's just so you know. That's not the way we go.
This is shake your head stuff. But,
so can you talk us through? So the scenario is contract's gone unconditional. The purchasers have engaged yourself to come in and just give them a bit of a one-over to understand a bit more into the property from the building and pest side.
Can I just ask a question? Why they've already bought it? Why did they get you in after the fact?
Well,
I'm really curious.
I think in this case they'd noticed that there were some problems,
okay.
And they really wanted an idea of what they needed to do to rectify the property,
They've already bought it though.
So they've bought it.
Okay.
They're living in it.
Already?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're actually living in the place. They've had some time in the house, and then they realised
we're
going to have to fix a few things here.
Yeah, okay.
We might get a building and pest inspector in to have a look at it for us,
Okay.
Yeah. Or somebody's recommended me to go there and have a look at it. I'm not sure how it came around that way, but anyway, So, yeah, I wandered into the property, and of course the floors were all out of level. The house is sitting on the ground.
What sort of vintage is the house we're talking?
We're looking at sort of built in, say, the 30s or 40s.
Like a Calbung or something like that.
Yep.
So California bungalow for those.
Timber, though.
Timber?
Yeah, not a
weatherboard?
brick California.
Yep.
Yeah. So timber house, weatherboards.
Timber stumps? Or?
Yeah, timber stumps. Okay. And that was only evident to be able to see from the outside. You know, through the gaps in the barge boards that they were timber because there was no access under there. So, you know, that's the number one thing. It's never been re-stumped. So the floors are everywhere. And the only way to fix that is to pull all the floors up, pull the bathroom out, pull the kitchen out, gut the whole place. The plaster walls, once the stumps are re-stumped, the lifting of those to level the house up creates a myriad of problems amongst
the cascading.
Yes, it just keeps going.
Was it renovated, the house, or was the internal condition like? Had it been renovated? Because sometimes people
it had been painted.
Okay, the old dodgy paint.
Yes,
patch and paint. You know, I honestly hate a property that smells like paint. Because I always go, like, it's the pig in lipstick. What are you hiding, right? Like, I've learnt from
especially with old places that the doors are still on angles and the windows aren't opening and all those sorts of things.
There's a few tricks with that. Like, people don't close the doors, there's a few tricks. I'm 110 kilos as well, so like, sometimes I get a bit of bounce on the floor if there's a bit of spring and a bit of bounce. But I think the average buyer, they walk through a home. I'm there. It's not long.
Yeah.
And they're making a call, and if they're not getting a building report, they're just hoping that it's okay.
And then you get the moisture meter out, and there's moisture in walls. The shower's just completely, compromised. There's
That's
water.
A fun call. That's just a fun call.
Oh, mate, there was nothing right with it.
Well, the hard part here is you calling them, but they already own the house as well.
And that's their problem. So
that's their problems.
I'm trying to tread gently, but at the same time, give them an honest opinion.
And what they should have had, Russ? They should have had a good advocate at the start. That's what they should have had. That's a little bit. It's just a little plug, but
No, that's true. It's
caveat emptor, buyer beware, right? You got to there's a quote like price is what you pay, value is what you get. Like to save $600-700 and not get a building report's nuts, right? Because like obviously that bill alone, you're talking probably north of $100,000. Like you've got bathroom kitchens, re-stumping more, ripping up all the floors internally because you got to cut through board. Like we're talking a gut almost. Like
it's in an area where you can't bulldoze it because it's heritage.
It's got heritage. Okay, so it's got every sort of issue known to man. But and anyway,
so let's just to close that point off. So they needed to re-stump. If it's too low, you need to essentially jack the house up.
Yeah.
Just so we can talk.
There's no subfloor access. There's no. You can't. So what Russ is referring to is you need to be able to crawl under the house to get subfloor access to access the stumps. But a re-stumper would not be able to. There was not enough clearance. So the only way they can get in is by internal access. So they've got to cut a hole, and then obviously you don't want to cut a hole in your floor, so you often have to redo the whole floor, and then everything cascades off that. So
But just talk us through it, just to sort of wrap it up. You're going to have to, in that scenario, you got to re-stump it, which means you're then ripping up the floors. That includes if you're on the level, kitchen, bathrooms. So you're redoing all those rooms, and then potentially if there's any impacts on the wall, you're sorting that out. So it's not just a re-stumping, you're actually having this.
That's right.
So that's how you suddenly go from a price tag of potentially, if you could get access of $60,000 up to maybe...
Well, I'd say to re-stump a house where you've got good access might only cost you 20 to 30,000.
It's probably 20 to 30. I've had some quotes. It's probably 20 to 30 if you've got good access. Good, like we're on a weatherboard and we've got good access and we're on concrete. But 20, 30 is about right because if they can get under there, it's easy. But for this house is a nightmare. Like it's you can't get
there's no way getting under, so it all has to be done from above, which just. It inflates the actual re-stumping to sort of more like 50,000.
Yeah. And
then all the other ongoing costs of rebuilding everything above there. Yeah. So you can be looking at anywhere between 200,000 to 300,000 even, to get the house back to where it should be.
Yeah. So expensive mistake, unfortunately.
Cool. No, that's always insightful for us. So trying to finish up with a bit of a feel-good story, right? Because I know you deliver a lot of good news, but you recently inspected a California bungalow. So one of my favourite styles, right? 1930s, and it had a $800,000 reno into it, but it was was what you call it. It was up to your building standard, right? Back in the day, the walrus constructions.
It's what we were good at.
It was what you were good at. So
it was.
So what made it? We don't want to just talk poor of the industry, but what was so good about this reno? So someone spent close to $1 million.
Yeah.
Californian bungalows, so 1930s vintage. So similar vintage is the one we just talked about before.
Yeah.
But what made this so good? Why were you so impressed?
I think like sometimes just a wow factor when you walk into some of these older California bungalow.
So was it boxed out at the back, or was it what happened to open up?
Yeah, so it had almost like a causeway into the back part of the property.
Okay.
And that opened into the kitchen living area, and then there was a passage off that living area that went to a couple of new bedrooms and bathrooms and things down the other end of the house. You can get a feel for these places and how well built they are, and that's quite often that the client has, obviously plenty of money to do it in the first place, but to be able to hand it to the builder and say, this is what we're after, here's the plans, please adhere to all of this and do a good job, and the builder's obviously done a good job. There are always little things that we pick up on, but they're more sort of potential problems down the track type of stuff. Just once again, they might have put a garden bed in outside the laundry door or something like that. Looks great, and you just think, all right, they probably shouldn't have done that, but we'll let that go, or we'll just put that in as a finding for moisture evidence, that type of thing, or site drainage might even get a mention there, but only as a minor type of thing, But just. Yeah, you get that wow factor in these places, and the more important thing is that they've done the front of the house so beautifully as well.
Yeah, so keep that period.
The doors are working, the windows are opening and shutting, those sorts of things that quite often in the old renos with those old places, the fronts are always still a little bit neglected. It has the extension done and everything's hunky-dory down there, but then when you get to the front part of the house, the windows are still, the sash windows haven't been fixed and replaced and all that sort of thing. So
I think the moral of the story is, good team of trusted professionals, right? And make sure you're vetting them, whether that's word of mouth or they've got the right qualifications. You pressure test their work, because there's obviously good people, there's bad people in every industry. Right?
Absolutely, and that runs right from, as I said before, 100 years ago to today.
Correct.
Correct. So. Yeah.
Just today we can talk about them on a podcast.
Yes.
Just to wrap up, we're gonna finish up with 2 questions. So the first thing I'll touch on is someone's looking to buy. We're going to talk on timeline. So if I'm looking to go to potentially either an auction in the coming week or look to sign essentially a private offer, make a private offer, when is the best time to get in touch with someone like yourself? So you've got enough runway to do what you do best.
Yeah, so for example, if something's being auctioned on the Saturday, if there's a property going to auction on the weekend, it's always good, and you're sure that you want to go and bid on that property, then it's a good idea to get a building and pest inspection done as early in the week as you can, so that you've got time to look at the report, read it, take it in, and decide whether you're still going to go ahead with that bid. So that's for auctions. When it's contract of sale, when it's already under contract, you've already signed your contract pending a building and pest inspection, you've got the cooling off period. So sometimes you get a little bit more time to get that organised, but it's always good to get it done as soon as you can. So we sort of say we need, anywhere between 48 and 72 hours to get it all booked in and done. From the time when we're notified.
Okay, it's good to know. So we use the 72 hours sort of a conservative, where people should pick up the phone and they'll be in a position where they can read your reports and work through what that means for them.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty important. And of course, once again, that phone call after the inspection's always very important, as Matt will...
I'll just sort of jump in there. I think, honestly, because I do this for a living as well, like you do, but if you just had a report, not many people would buy a house, right? Because there's obviously a lot of disclaimers. It's scary. Yeah. It's the context, it's the insights.
Sure.
The call's like the most important thing, right? Because obviously, and it's not you, it's just the law, isn't it? And particularly with the termites, there's so many disclaimers you guys have to include as part of the regulation. So I think it's, without a call, the report's not that helpful, right? It's sort of it's a maintenance list, but you got to understand it. And I think there's no point, if you've crawled under that subfloor in the roof, like that's the gold. Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing. So I think that's what, if you're trying to DIY it yourself and stuff, like you've got to leverage these professionals because you've been doing this for 3+ decades, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. It's always a good fun conversation, that one.
Hopefully it's
especially with you, Matt.
Yeah, it's always a bit of banter, mate. Particularly the footy season, mate. The Hawks and the Blues, mate. So it's good. I'm happy to have footy chats with you at the moment. But on that note, last one, mate. Last one. So I'm not an advocate. I'm a first time buyer. I'm about to inspect a property on a Saturday, or I'm going through 6 or 8 with parents. Like, what are some obvious red flags? What should I really pay out for at an inspection? So not just the obvious stuff. I think you mentioned a few today.
Yeah.
But just a take home for someone who's trying to do their best thing, and then and obviously if there is a red flag, obviously get someone like you involved. Like what's your 2 or 3?
I think when you're walking up to a property, the maintenance is pretty much the first thing to look for, whether it looks like it's been tidied up, or whether it is.
So you've got 4 cars in the nature strip, and you've got a chain fence. Not good look. No.
Yeah, not a great look.
No, I'm just saying.
There's that. There's also the vegetation thing that we talked about earlier.
So vegetation around the house, just around the house,
on the walls of the house. Basically, inviting that moisture and that potential for termite attack. And I guess when you're walking inside the property and to feel the up and down in the floors.
Springy and bouncy, I think that's probably the one thing, right? And sometimes my tip would be shut the doors in the bedroom and stuff, because sometimes they're so out of level that no one actually shuts them, right?
Yeah.
And agents will do tricks to
they'll put tables behind them.
Agents are there
to
they trick, and they'll even use their boots to they don't want you to look at the floors, right? So and that's what we do. I'll shut doors a lot regularly, and sometimes they're so out of level it's not funny.
Weird places they put rugs sometimes, things like that. Yeah.
Nah, appreciate it, Russ. That's some good tips.
And open some windows. Just test a couple of windows.
Yeah, people don't do that.
They're opening and shutting.
Use the bathrooms in their house as well.
That's, I don't know if that's kosher, but Matty, but it's in South Africa maybe. I don't know.
Russ, thank you for coming on and sharing some insights. It's good to see, as you said, unfortunately some of maybe the nightmares that you might see, but as we also talk through some of the really good stories and how, regardless of sort of around the timing, but there's some really good builders and also people maybe a bit below the standard, but that's not something that's changed. It's just people to be aware of, and they can engage someone like yourself to give them that peace of mind if they're looking to make a large purchase. They can have that knowledge available to them and help them inform that decision.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks, Russ. We can get Russ's details as well in the notes, so they can obviously reach out if they need inside. You got your branding there, mate. So
thanks for the plug. Yeah,
very sharp. No. In all seriousness, you're sort of an integral part of our team, right? So we've been working together for almost a decade, and so did my own house as well, which I appreciate. So pointed out all these defects, but we've rectified a lot of them. So, but it's super important, and as I said, I wouldn't buy a house without one. It's you wouldn't drive a car without insurance and stuff. Like, to take a risk on, the median house price is about $1 million these days. So it's a craziness to not spend $600-700.
Absolutely.
It's craziness. Like, again, all the stories you shared, like you just got to do it. It's just crazy. It's a risk.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
If you would like to keep receiving property insights and golden nuggets from our guests, please do follow us, and you'll get the latest episode released on a fortnightly basis.